Hey guys, today we're going to cover some basic Linux network commands for beginners. Now, these should help you get by. So just so you know what to expect, we're going to show you commands to set up IP addresses and routes, but we're not going to be configuring interfaces persistently, and we're not going to be setting up Wi-Fi in this video. Now, we are going to show you how to, use secure shell to get a secure shell on a remote system, and we're going to show you how to use secure file transfer or, SCP to securely transfer files to and from a remote system. We're also going to show you some basic DNS commands to check things in DNS and make sure things are resolving correctly. And we're going to show you some commands to test for testing and checking open ports and for some basic connectivity tests. So we're going to try to cover all that stuff today, just so you know what to expect in this video. It's going to go for about 20 minutes of this stuff, and we are including a bunch of useful, really practical stuff. So let's just jump right into it. Let's do a few network commands. So we have the IP command. So anything with the IP command, these are newer. These come with a new package. So they're newer commands. Now on any given system, you may have the newer or the older commands installed, or you may have both. So I'm going to show you both. So IP, the IP command lets you do a lot. You can do IPA or IP adder or IP address. That will show you addresses assigned to interfaces. So you have like Docker 0, Verbridge, or over here, WLAN, that's my Wi-Fi interface. This is my actual Ethernet network interface. It shows you the address for it right here. So that's the IP address. It shows you all kinds of useful stuff. Now, the other thing you can do is you can type L for just links. So A for interfaces with addresses, and you can say IPL just to show you the interfaces. Not sure why that's specifically more useful, or you would want to use that. I just use IPA all the time. And you can also use IPR to show routes. This will show routes on the system, so the routing table with that, right? So the competing command for this with the older command that's deprecated but still available on a lot of systems would be ifconfig. Now, normally you're just going to run ifconfig-a to show all interfaces. This will show all the interfaces. I think the output is a little bit neater on this. Anyways, there's my Wi-Fi interface, virtualization bridge, actual Ethernet, and there's the address. So there you go. ifconfig does the same thing as IPA. Now you can also say route-n. This is an older command that's replaced by IPR. So route-n will give you your routing table and all your routes, right? All your network routes. Kernel IP routing table. So in any case, next I'm going to want to show you how you can see what is listening on different TCP or UDP ports and what the process show you what the PID of the process is, and show you by port numbers. So the newer command, so the new command is SS and the old command is netstat. You can do that with both of these. So SS-LTUPN. So L for all listening ports, T for TCP, U for UDP, P for process, and N for network. So you can list everything there. Anything that's listening on a port here, you see a lot of ports listening. A lot of them are just on your local host. We see DNS right here. And what else? Yeah, a few different things, IPv6 things. So you can see there are a few different things listing on different ports. So yeah, this output would be a little bit neater and nicer if I had zoomed out a little bit in. But yeah, I have the text too large. I'm not going to change that right now. So SS-LTUPN, if you want to see what's listening to what ports, that's super useful to have and a super useful command to be able to use. You might want to use sudo to make sure you can see everything, and that gives us a bit more information on a lot of these. So you can actually get the PIDs. I think the reason I wasn't seeing PIDs before is because I was not using sudo. So remember to use sudo if you want the PIDs for everything. See the PIDs for this process that I'm running, but other people's processes, I can't see the PIDs, what PIDs are listening on what ports. So in any case, that's SS. You use the same command. The old command is netstat. So netstat, same parameters, and it gives you all sorts of stuff here. So you can say sudo to get even more information. Does not look like that's too different. Anyways, so that's the command you would use. Anyways, so clear all that out. Now, Check the link in the description for a little bit more info on setting up temporary IP addresses and stuff like that. In this guide, we're not going to show you anything about setting up static IPs or Wi-Fi or any of that stuff. That's something for a whole separate guide. But yes, we're not going to do that. Although in this guide, we do have some info on setting up, bringing up setting an IP address and setting routes and stuff like that. But you are going to just check the link in the description for info on that. I'm not going to actually show you how to do that in this video right at the moment. So, yeah, all that is a whole other story for a whole other guide for the most part. So, moving along here, I'm going to show you a few more network-related commands. So, one is telnet. Now, telnet is used to connect to remote hosts. So you can say telnet and an IP address, and normally that would just telnet into the host. Nobody uses telnet anymore. It's super insecure and really, really old. It was old and insecure and not recommended, 25 years ago when I started with Linux. So now it's even more so. But if you specify a port, you can telnet to that port, and really you're just using that to check if that port is open. And here we see we connected to this, so we can see that that port is open on that IP address. So there you go. That is one way you can do that. Now, a better way to do that would be with the netcat command. So nc, and you could just do nc by itself, but if you want to make sure it doesn't try to send data and it just checks if a port is open, you can do z and v for verbose, and you can check a port on a given host. So let's do the same. Let's do this guy right here. We can check if port 80 is open. And yep, succeeded. So you can also, so the netcat command is a lot nicer than the telnet command. It may not be installed on every system. Usually telnet is. So even today you'll see people using telnet to troubleshoot connectivity to ports. They're not using it to connect to the port. They're not using it as a shell or anything like that. But it's something that's still used today. Now you could use a range. So you could go from 80 to whatever, let's just specify 150. It will check all of these ports and tell you which of them is open. So most of these failed. So let's say if we did 50 to 85. So some of these are going to be open. Oops. Some of these are going to be open, like port 80 is open, port 53 is open, and there you go. That's how you can scan for open ports on a host. Now, if you want to SSH to a host, you can SSH like this. I'm going to show you a real host. So IP. So my current IP address is going to be this guy right here. So I have another host on the same network. So SSH, if you want to SSH into a host, paste I'm going to change this to 2. We can SSH into this host. And notice by default, it uses the current user that you're logged in as. Now, if you want to specify a different user, you could go like this. You could say user 2 at, and it will attempt to SSH as user 2 rather than user 1, since I'm logged in as user 1 right now. Now, normally it's bad practice to SSH as root. Normally you SSH as a regular user and then sudo to root. Any case, you can also, so you can SSH to an IP address, or you can SSH to a host name, like this host name was Banyan. I could SSH to this, paste, and there you go, SSH in. Now, you could specify the username, like you could say user1 at if you wanted to, or some people, I believe you can actually use a -L. You'll see some people do this. It doesn't make as much sense to me, so don't do that. So that's how you SSH to things. Oh, one other thing I should show you is if you want to use a key file, If you have a default name in your SSH directory, I'm not going to show you how to create those keys today. But if you name it a standard generic name in your SSH directory, you don't even have to specify your SSH key. It's just going to use it by default. But if you have like a strange key you downloaded from Amazon or something, you can specify an exact key that you want to use, like this. Specify the path to the key you want to use, and then just SSH in. So that's how you'd use an SSH key. Now, if you want an SCP, SCP is so SSH gets you a shell on the host. SCP is used for transferring files over the SSH protocol. So you can say SCP data1.txt and specify the IP address or host name you want to copy that to. So yeah, you could, for example, use this, paste, and then you're going to specify where you want to copy it to, like home user 1, or you could copy it to var temp, wherever you want to copy it. You basically, the source, destination. Now the source could be a file on your current system, then the host name of the remote system, and the directory you want to place it in. Now, if you want to pull something off the remote system, you're going to have to specify the actual file name, like the file name on the remote system. If you want to pull it off the remote system, you specify the remote system first, and then your say your current directory, like dot, or maybe you want to put it in var log on your current system. That doesn't make sense to do that, but you could do that if you wanted to. That's how you'd SCP something to your current system. So you pull it off of the remote system. So the source is the remote system. You specify the file you want to your current system. Now, if you can also copy things between different hosts. Like, let's say if there was a Banyan2, you say Banyan2 var temp output.log. So you can copy from this host with this path to this host and place it in this path. So even if I'm not even on either of these two hosts, I can SCP files between those two hosts. So then you can, I already showed you, you can specify a username similar to how you can with the SSH command. Same deal, specify a username if you like. So you can also specify, so the other important thing to do is to, so you can specify a key with -i.ssh and whatever key you have, just like that. Same as the SSH command, you can specify a key with the SCP command. Now, another useful thing to do, if you are copying a directory, instead of copying, like if you're from a remote host, if you want to copy this entire directory, or maybe it's like var data1, right? So if you want to copy a directory from a remote host to, say, for example, your current directory, you want to just copy this data directory, the whole directory to where you currently are, you're going to need a -r for recursive. So scp-r, the whatever you want to copy to wherever you want to copy it to. Or you might be copying like something from your local host to the remote host, like that, right? Like that, basically. So you could do that as well, but yeah, that's basically all the important stuff you need to know for the SCP command. So let me actually show you how this works, just to see. So all right, let's say SCP test1.txt to Banyan1 home user 1. So let's just SCP this file. And there you go. It transferred almost instantly because it's a tiny file. We SCP'd that file over to the remote host. Now, next thing I'm going to want to show you is the ping command. So for example, you could say ping google.com if you want to ping it and verify that we have connectivity there. Or you could also run a trace route to Google, whoops, and this will basically show you all the hops that it would take to get from my current host to Google. So this is my first router, this is my second router still within my apartment, then this is my at my ISP, and then this is another hop, all the way over the internet to Google, wherever their CDN is. In any case, that's how you trace route, and if it fails, if it only makes it to here, you know, or here, you can tell where it's failing and what went wrong and kind of troubleshoot the connectivity. So anyways, host name, the host name command will show you the name of your current host that you are on. Now, a few DNS commands, you can say you have host, nslookup, and dig. So few examples, you can run host google.com. It's going to look up that host name, look up the IP address for it. You can also say nslookup, and it will tell you like what DNS server it queried, and it'll give you the IP address for it, right? You can also say dig. Dig is a newer recommended tool these days, and it gives you a ton of debug information and interesting stuff. See all the stuff you might be interested in if you wanted it. But yeah, the dig command is also available. Now, you can do all of this stuff. You can also take an IP address. Like let's take this one for example, and paste it in there. You can run host IP address to resolve that to a host name. And yeah, same deal with nslookup and dig. You can resolve it and get all kinds of extra info too if you want it, right? So that's how you would resolve host names and stuff. Next thing I want to show you is the lsof command. So we're going to run this with sudo just to make sure it shows us everything. We want root permissions. So sudo lsof stands for list open files. Normally you can use this for listing files, but a more useful use for this is to check what is using a certain port on your system. So if we want to check, all right, -I for I guess internet, but that tells us that we're working with ports, either UDP or TCP. You say TCP port 8080. What is using that port? It's not going to tell me because nothing is. But what about port 80? Well, it lists a bunch of processes and their PIDs that are using that. Everything that's using that port and a bunch of information about them. So that is pretty handy to have. You can see what is using a given port on your system. So you could do like TCP 53. You can see what's using that, DNS masquerade. Now, what else? We could also do UDP. And beyond that, you could, if you don't want to specify TCP or UDP, you could just use, you could just leave that part out, just colon port 53, and it's going to list the TCP and UDP, so UDP and TCP both. So there's that. And that's basically everything I want to show you about lsof for today. Real handy command to have. And if you want more info on that, check the link in the description for that. But yeah, of course, what else do we have? Next, I wanted to show you a few files that are suitable. Those are all the commands, but I feel like you should be aware of a few files on your system, just some things that you should know. So cat, so you can cat etc hosts. This is the hosts file. So you see a bunch of hosts, and this is just yeah. So those are just some hosts that they're basically hard coded into that file. So instead of looking them up on DNS, it will just use whatever is listed on that file. So next thing you should be aware of is cat etc resolve. So etcresolve.conf tells you what name server to use. And I'm using something on my current network. That's the host I logged into before. Number 2 right here, Banyan. So that is my DNS server, my DHCP server, and a bunch of other stuff. So yeah, etcresolve.conf. So hopefully you found this useful, if not just interesting. Give me a thumbs up and leave a comment down below if you know something I don't know, or any comments, questions, criticisms, anything you want to say. I want to hear it, but also definitely hit the subscribe button because we have a lot of other great tech content you just don't want to miss out on. So definitely hit the subscribe button. We do like coding, Linux, servers, hardware, software, electronics, networking, all sorts of great stuff, robots. Don't miss out on that. Definitely hit the subscribe button and also hit the little bell icon. Otherwise, YouTube won't give you notifications when new videos get posted. And also check out the list of videos we've already published. We have a ton of great content out there already, so definitely check that out. And that's about it for today. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys on that next video.